Hi everyone, this is Arvind from MindMajix, and today I welcome you all to NextJS interview questions. Okay, so just to give you a brief background about NextJS. So NextJS is a full stack development React framework that is built on top of Node.js. Okay, so it enables its users to render server-side services and build static as well as dynamic web application. So it is an open source framework developed by Vercel and initially released in the year 2016. And Vercel, which was earlier known as ZEIT, has the trademarks and copyrights of Next.js. So conventionally, React allows building only the server-side content, but the tools and the functions provided by Next.js enables you to build server-side content as well. So this was a quick overview of what exactly is Next.js. And in this interview questions video, so basically what we are going to do is we are covering the most frequently asked interview questions, as well as basically there are three categories in this videos, like the number of questions. So the first category of questions is for the freshers, like those who have 0 to 1 years of experience with Next.js. After that, the next category of questions is for the experienced candidates, like those who have 2 to 3 years of experience with Next.js. And the last set of questions is the most frequently asked questions about Next.js. Okay, so this is the whole agenda behind this interview questions of Next.js. So without any further delay, let's get started and let us begin with our first question. So the first question is, mostly for which type of websites is Next.js used? Okay, so there are several types of websites and applications that can be built with Next.js, but the most popular ones are desktop websites, static websites, server rendered applications, SEO friendly websites, and progressive web applications. Okay, so let's move to the next question. And guys, since these are freshers questions, like these questions are meant for freshers, so you can expect easy questions as well in this category of questions. So can you use Next.js with Redux? Okay, so yes, it is possible to use Next.js with Redux. The next question is, how can a custom error page be created in Next.js? So in order to create a custom error page, we need to follow a few steps, such as an error.js has to be defined in the page folder. After that, the error component of our own has to be imported rather than next error for using our custom error page. The next question is, mention the benefits of implementing a serverless model. So basically, a serverless model helps in splitting the app into smaller parts called as lambdas. Hence, it helps in improving the readability as well as the scalability of any application. So the affordability is also enhanced due to the model pay for what you use. The next question is, what do you mean by SSR? So SSR basically means server-side rendering. So this enables rendering on the server, a client-side page application, and then we can send the rendered page to the client. So these pages get loaded faster as the browser gets access to them sooner. The next question is, how can serverless mode be implemented? So for implementing the serverless mode, the serverless target has to be added in the next.config.js, as you can see on the screen. So here you in the module.exports, what you have added target colon serverless. The next question is, what is meant by styled JSX in Next.js? So we use this CSS in JS library for writing encapsulated and scoped CSS for styling Next.js components. So no other component gets affected by introducing the styles to a component using styled JSX. So this allows adding, changing, and deleting the styles without any complications. The next question is, what do you mean by automatic code splitting? So each page bundles as well as serves every import declared by us, and therefore unnecessary code is never loaded on the pages. The next question is a very important question. So the question says, is Next.js backend, frontend, or full stack? So the answer to this question is Next.js is full stack. So it means that it allows rendering client side as well as the server side content. And this is the reason it is highly valued on React as React allows only front-end development without it. The next question is a very important question. So what do you mean by DOM? So DOM basically means document object model, and it is HTML elements object representation. So the user interface and our code are kind of bridged by it, and it contains a tree-like structure having relationships such as child and parent. The next question is, differentiate between imperative and declarative programming. So in imperative programming, we have to specify each step of building anything, such as user interface. Whereas in declarative programming, we just need to describe the end product and the software will create it for us. It takes comparatively fewer efforts and time. So React allows its users to do declarative programming. The next question is, what types of pre-rendering are available in Next.js? So Next.js provides two types of pre-rendering, basically server-side rendering and static rendering. The next question is a very important question. So the question says, differentiate between pre-rendering types available in Next.js. So the difference lies in the generation of HTML for a page. So basically, if you talk about static generation, so it generates the HTML at build time and we can reuse it on each request. It is the recommended one of the two. For using static generation, either the page component has to be exported or you can use getInitialprops. Apart from this, if you talk about server-side rendering, so it generates the HTML on each request. So for using the server-side rendering, getServer-side-props has to be exported. The next question is, what is the default pre-render in Next.js? So by default, static generation is the pre-render available in Next.js without any data fetched. So just to give you an example, here you can see this few lines of code. So if you talk about this code, so here it says function about, and here in the curly braces, you have written division, and inside division, you have specified about. And after that, you have to export default about. The next question is, what are the main scripts in Next.js? So the main scripts which are listed in the package.json file are, as you can see on the screen, here you have build. So build basically creates a ready to deploy application. After that, you have dev, which is a development server is run on the localhost 3000. So this is basically the port number. After that, you also have start, which is our built next application is started. After that, you have lint, and our next project will be linked with the help of dev dependency. So ESLint warns if the written code needs fixing. So guys, these were the questions which were meant for freshers. And now, so question number 16 onwards, these questions will be for the experienced candidates. So let's begin with the next question. So the next question says, which method does Next.js recommend for fetching data? So Next.js provides several methods for fetching the data, but the one that it recommends is getInitialprops. So it is an asynchronous function using which data can be retrieved from anywhere. The next question is, what are the properties available in a context object that arises on using getInitialprops? So guys, if we talk about the properties, as you can see, these are the properties that are available. So the first property is the path name. So this is nothing but the path section of the URL which is specified. After that, you have as path, which is a string of the actual path that is shown in the browser, which is to be specified. After that, you have the query. So the query specifies the query string section that is passed as an object. After that, you have the request. So it specifies the HTTP request object on the server. After that, you have the response. So it specifies the HTTP response object, which is again on the server. And apart from this, it also has ERR property, which specifies the error object in case any error is found while rendering. The next question is a very important question. So the question says, differentiate between Next.js and Create-React-App. So basically, if you talk about the Create-React-App, so the Create-React-App is nothing but React with some integrations. So basically, there is no need for setting up Babel, Webpack, and other such packages for running the React, as it is a good boilerplate. But packages need to be added on top of it if you want extra functions, such as server-side rendering and routing. So this was all about the Create-React-App. Whereas if you talk about Next.js, so Next.js, as discussed earlier, is a full stack and open source React framework. So it comes with important inbuilt features like routing, server-side rendering, API routing, and much more. So hence, it is far more convenient than Create-React-App. The next question says, what are the most important features introduced in Next.js 12.1? So the important features of Next.js 12.1 are, new Rust-based compiler is available in it. After that, it has faster image optimization, as well as it has on-demand incremental static regeneration, which is basically in the beta mode as of now. After that, it has self-hosted Next.js improvements and zero configuration Zest plugin. And last but not the least, it has React 18 support as well. The next question is, which key features are provided by Next.js in terms of SEO? So if you talk about features provided by Next.js in terms of SEO, which is nothing but search engine optimization. So it has Jamstack compatibility, increased flexibility in the designing of UX of our website. Apart from this, it has automatic static optimization, improved data security, fast static websites, and responsiveness and adaptability as well. The next question is, how can build ID be configured in Next.js? So for configuring the build ID in Next.js, a static ID must be configured between our build. So therefore, the generate build ID function must be provided within the given configuration. For instance, as you can see in this code, for example, if you can see in this code, here you have module.exports, and inside the curly braces, what you have written generate build ID and async in the round braces. So basically, this is the function. And inside this, you have written return my build ID. So for instance, get the latest git commit hash. Okay. So using this code, you can configure the build ID in Next.js. The next question is, explain the importance of code splitting in Next.js. So using this feature, we can split the code into several bundles. So these will be loaded only in parallel or on demand. So smaller bundles allows us to control the prioritization of resource load, and it majorly impacts the load time. The next question is, mention the three main ways to split the code. So the three important ways to split the code are entry points, prevent duplication, and dynamic imports. So if you talk about entry points, so in this method, configuration needs to be entered manually. The next is prevent duplication. So split chunks plugin or entry dependencies are used here for splitting the chunks of code. And last but not the least, you have the dynamic imports. So the code is split using inline function calls within the modules. The next question is, how can a page directory be created inside a project? So we need to populate basically pages index.js for creating a page directory within a project with the given contents. So just to give you an example, here you have function homepage, and inside this we have returned division, and inside this we are mentioning a sample statement over here. So like hello there or hello world, whatever you can write. So basically, this is the way through which you create a page directory inside a project. So the next question says, explain the AMP first pages method to enable AMP in Next.js. So these can be served to the website's primary traffic and search engine generated traffic as well. So if you talk about the syntax, so as you can see here, for the pages in index.js, you have to write import with AMP from next/AMP, and here you have to use the function homepage, and inside this you have to return any statement like welcome to AMP plus Next.js, and after this you have to export the default with AMP, and inside this you have to specify the homepage. The next question says, explain the hybrid AMP pages method to enable AMP in Next.js. So the coexisting AMP version of a traditional page is allowed by the hybrid AMP pages. So this enables the search engine to display the AMP page or the version in the different search results on mobile. The next question says, how can CDN be set up in Next.js? So the asset prefix setting needs to be set up first, and then the CDN origin has to be configured for supporting and resolving the domain on which Next.js is hosted. So just to give an example here, we have written a few lines of code. So here you have to specify the constant, and this is this prod, and equal to, you have to specify process.env.node.env, which is equal to production. After this, you have the module.exports, and inside this you have to specify asset prefix is prod and the URL basically on which you are trying to host your Next.js. So here you have specified the URL. Okay. So this is the way through which CDN can be set up in Next.js. The next question says, what configuration option will you set if the CDN is present on a separate domain? So just to give an example, in the next.config.js, you have to specify the module.exports, and here you have to specify cross origin : anonymous. The next question says, Can Next.js be hosted in a web server such as Nginx? So Next.js is relatively more complex than the static HTML files. So here an application server is required to run Node.js for deploying and running a Next.js application. So requests have received that need to be processed on the server. So guys, with this, we have covered the questions which were meant for the experienced candidates. And now from 30 onwards, basically roughly 10 questions. So these 10 questions are the most frequently asked questions in a Next.js interview. So the next question is, what are the some major companies that use Next.js? So guys, as you can see on the screen, these are the major IT companies that use Next.js, such as TikTok, Nike, Netflix Jobs, GitHub Copilot, Target, Twitch, Hulu, and so on. The next question is, list some competitors and alternatives to Next.js. So guys, as you can see on the screen, some alternatives to Next.js are Gatsby, React, Create-React-App, Hexo, Hugo, Loopback, Angular Universal, and React Router. The next question is, mention some of the important features of Next.js. So if you talk about the features of Next.js, so here static export is supported by Next.js and easy server rendering by default is available. Apart from this, automatic code splitting can be C-ported and full Babel and Webpack control is also provided. The hot module replacement is supported by its environment and we can implement it with any of the HTTP servers of Node.js. Apart from this, a simple routine of client-side content is supported and reloading of hot code is also supported. And last but not the least, Next.js is easily customizable. The next question is, how can different digital products be built using Next.js? So there can be several digital products that can be built using Next.js, such as Jamstack websites, single web pages, minimal viable product, SaaS product, web products, dashboards, retail and e-commerce websites, user interfaces, complex web applications, static websites, and much more. So the next question says, in which language is Next.js written? So Next.js is basically written in JavaScript, Rust, TypeScript, and React languages. The next question is, why is there a built-in router in Next.js? So basically, a router is based on a file system that is used in reducing the configuration, and shallow routing is supported by Next.js. Hence, it doesn't need the methods for data fetching to change the URL. And apart from this, routers are lazy loadable. The next question is, how can the data be fetched in Next.js? So basically, we can use multiple methods for fetching the data, such as server-side renders using getServerSideProps, client-side rendering using SWR or use effect inside the components of React. Apart from this, static side renders using getStaticProps and regenerate incremental static using the revalidate prop inside getStaticProps. The next question is, what are the requirements for building a web app from scratch using React? So there are a few requirements, such as a bundler such as Webpack should be there to bundle the code, and also a compiler such as Babel should be there to transform the code. Apart from this, we have to optimize the productions like splitting of the code, and the pages have to be statistically pre-rendered for SEO, and we might need to render the client side and server side as well. Apart from this, server-side code might also have to be written to connect the data to store and React. The next question is, why is Next.js preferred by most of the major companies? So there are a few reasons for this. So first, it is fully extensible and no setup is required for this. It is ready for production and it enables the server-side rendering as well. The next question is, what is the process of installing Next.js? So Node.js should already be installed on your system. So that is basically a prerequisite for installing Next.js, and a directory for keeping Next.js should be created, such as you can see here, mkdir, my portfolio site. And after that, once you create this directory, you have to navigate to that directory using cd my portfolio site. Okay, so it is now initialized using the package.json file, and the y flag is used by npm init-y. Okay, and the given syntax is used for installing Next.js, as you can see here, npm space install space react-dom, and then next. So next.js app is initialized by updating the package.json by using the run script for languages, and the given script is then added after we find the package.json file. So once you find the package.json file, inside this file, you add the following lines. such as inside curly braces, first you write the scripts in double quotes, and then you specify the colon. And again in curly braces, you have to specify the dev, which is next, build, which is next build, and start, which is next start. Okay, and then you have to close the curly braces for both of these. Okay, so this is basically the process of installing Next.js. So guys, with this, we have come to the end of this session on Next.js interview questions. I hope you guys have enjoyed this session. If you have any queries related to this session, then you can write your queries in the comment section, and my team is here to help you with all your doubts and queries. So guys, I wish you all the very best for your upcoming interview, and thank you so much for being with us.